Hey, you guys, sorry, a little bit late. Interesting day. So welcome to another broadcast, live broadcast. So glad that you guys can be with us today. Have a very interesting conversation. You know, it's one that we have touched on many times in the past, but in light of recent developments, I figured that this will be a good time to revisit this and to actually look at some other things as well that are associated with this. So, but definitely buckle up. We're gonna, we're not gonna hold back. We're gonna be, we're just looking at the facts as it is. So if you're one that's gonna look at the title and the thumbnail and you're ready to jump into the comments, save your keyboard, okay? Save that energy and you can keep moving right along. But we read over here, okay? And we're gonna look at everything, and we're gonna try to be as fair as you can be. Wherever the truth leads us, that's where we're gonna go. We're gonna talk about this whole recent release of the King documents and what does that mean for us. Anybody that's been following that story, much of that stuff was already known anyway, but we do need to talk about it. And like I said, what does it mean for us today? So I'll give we're going to give it about another minute or so, and then we're going to dive right in and get into it, okay? All right, we're going to give about another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll start. All right, temperature now where we are in the beautiful state of Arizona is 105 degrees. 105 degrees today. So a little bit on the toasty side today. But it's still nice. It's still nice out here. Can you believe we are almost finished this month of July? We're literally almost finished the month of July. I mean, don't blink. Don't blink. It's flying, y'all. And time waits for no man. But yeah, we're pretty almost finished the month of July. And like before you know, we'll be in August and then September, and then it's all over again. It's like, man, this is really something. Don't it seem like a lot has happened in this year. Like Trump was reelected this year. Well, he was reelected in November, but he officially became president in January of this year. But since then, we've been flying. We've been flying, man. That's really something. But anyway, let me move this out of here. Just clearing my desktop here so we can get things started here. But yeah, so how are you doing? How you doing? Shout out, of course, to everybody that's in the chat that's with us today. So glad that you guys can make it here. And hope you guys had a wonderful week. And you're looking forward to a wonderful weekend. And I hope whatever you got planned, make sure you make a lot of room for peace, because we certainly need it. And we need to foster that peace at home before we start begging people to legislate it, right? So anyway, as I said earlier, today we're going to get into, and as you see from the thumbnail and all that, we're going to talk about King MLK. And like I said, this is a topic that we have talked about many times on this platform. So this isn't anything new. And, we're just revisiting it because, as you know, the president, Donald Trump, has just recently, was it this week, had all of these documents that have been held for a long period of time on MLK. And I don't know if they did that. I know they said they're going to do the ones for JFK, but for MLK at least, those dropped this week, and you can access those and however you want to go through it. You want to read it page by page, you can do it. You can use ChatGPT. You can use any other LLM, and look for keywords, and it will bring anything up for you. So, if you just want to download it, you can just download it. I didn't get a chance to do that yet, but I'm definitely going to download it just to have it. But this information has been been out here for a good minute, and so it's not anything. Shouldn't be anything new. But I was surprised to see some people who were a little bit shocked, about some of this stuff. I was like, this has been out here. But we're going to go through it, and we're going to talk about it from a perspective on what does it mean for us in the here and now, right now, right? But first, we want to give a shout out to Herbal Harmony. Birthday tomorrow, so I will be celebrating. Hello, everybody. All right, so happy birthday to Herbal Harmony. I'm going to say Herbal Harmony. Look at that, I'm messing it. Herbal Harmony. Herbal Harmony. Happy birthday, and many, many, many more. And hope you and yours enjoy it and make it a good one, okay? So thanks for sharing that with us, and we love that. We love celebrating life here. Death is one thing, and this week, man, has been a lot of reminders of that, huh? Starting with Malcolm Jamal Warner, followed by that's your dude, the Ozzy Osbourne, who called himself the Prince of Darkness, so like. They having a meeting now. I don't know. And then who else? Hulk Hogan. I know you guys really miss him, right? Hulk Hogan. He passed. Chuck Mangione. Mangione? I don't know. Yeah, he passed. The trumpeter from back in the day. He passed. And it was someone else. It was a female. I don't know, but it was someone else that passed too. All this week has been really something. So anytime we get to celebrate, life, let's do that. So again, happy birthday. Let me see. Let me take my drink here. Hold on for a second. We got a restaurant out here called Salad and Go. And man, we didn't have anything like this back east. Salad and Go it's like a fast food place, and they have some really nice salads, really, really good salads. And the salads are like cheap, man, but they're good. They're good. Salad to Go, but they're really, really inexpensive. So, when we came out here, it was like, oh my goodness, you can and I know back east we have those there are salad restaurants out there. I'm trying to think of some right now, and it escapes me right now, but you have to walk in and get it all. No, this is just a drive-through, and you can either get what they'll do is they'll put it in a bowl, and then they'll give you your dressing. And so what you do is you put your dressing on it, seal your bowl, and then shake it or whatever. It's pretty cool. Or you could tell them, hey, put it in a wrap for me, and they could do that. But they have these drinks here that are like natural for the most part. It's this is a frozen strawberry lemonade. Under $2. Their drinks are really inexpensive, and I get them all the time. Let me get one more swig, and we're going to get started, okay? Oh, yeah, someone said, love that place. They got them in Texas. Okay, good, yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. What else? And then it looks like the rest of the country, y'all going to be getting In-N-Out in a little bit, In-N-Out burger. So, I saw some people trying to, I don't, for me, I ain't no, like, y'all don't be messing with my place. That ain't my place. Okay. But, they do all right, but they're really popular. It's really popular. And the CEO, well, I don't know if she's the CEO. She's basically the part of the family. And she said for her family and part of the company, they're going to be relocating from California out to Tennessee, like a lot of other companies, they're doing the same thing. And so they say they're getting positioned to, start expanding on the East Coast. So it looks like y'all be getting some In and Out in a little bit. And what's really interesting about In and Out is the way they get their meat, because all their meat is fresh. They actually, where they put their restaurants, they put it strategically where they can pretty much like in an arm's reach, they can go to the farm and get their meat. And, and the meat is, from what I understand, is not frozen. And so they just turn it, flip it, and give it to you. And the lines are always long. Oh, someone said Kava is popular here. Yep, Kava. Yeah, I'm very familiar with Kava too. I haven't been there in a minute though. But yeah, we used to go to Kava a lot. Kava's good. When you just want something quick and, healthy, for the most part. I get so mad and angry every time when you look up these places and it's like they're cooking with 100% canola or some of this other foolishness out here. It just makes me so angry, because I'm like, y'all. So I have to look up and see if I can find places that, do the olive oil or whatever. And there's very few of them. I went to one place, Lord, I said, you got the oil right, but this that you gave me, I'm not coming back, but they got the oil right, and I actually said, I was like, encouraging them a little bit, whatever. We were talking and finding out more about, the scene and all of that, but I ain't coming back. Anyway, real quick here, before we get started here, we still got the 20% sale going on right now over at sambatree.com. So make sure you check that out. 20% off. If, all things health and wellness. Yep. We got it. You can go and check it out over there. Again, the website is sambatree.com, from bitters to powders to teas to creams, all kinds of stuff there, all kinds of stuff. And the great thing about this is that we're not selling things we don't use. We've used it. It has to pass our house test first. And if it's something that we feel like is effective for us, then we pass it on to you. And so we do all that. Check that out over on sambatree.com. Also, this past week, Nicole did her wonderful job with her class on alternate day fasting, which went wonderful. It was wonderful. I was there and all of that. It was good. And we're still trying to get people set up. We have a support group set up, because it's not just a class, it's a support group as well. And it's an ongoing thing. If you're someone you're like, dang, I wanted to sign up for it. Well, you can still sign up for it, because it was recorded and you can download it and watch it at any time and join the rest of us on this journey with alternate day fasting. And she's going to be providing a ton of information for you. But the great thing I like about it too is that you're going to have support. We're not just throwing out information, but you're going to have real people on the other side walking you along, cheering you on, telling you that you can do it and all of that. Because again, it's not about just losing weight. This is a transformative opportunity that you have for your life. Not just boosted, and it's just true, and so you could check that out again over at sambatree.com. Last thing, I just uploaded the latest installment of our brain series, Real Intelligence, over on Sambatree YouTube page. You could catch the link over up here on this page on the community page. And we're talking about yet another exciting part of the brain. We're just going through all of it. And this is very important. I know it's not really, it may not seem like a very clickable thing to that would grab your attention. But this is something that, as we're making our way to the main topic here, this is when we're talking about brain health or mental health. See, my goal here on this platform is to get people not to just check out as soon as you hear anything about health or not to just check out when you hear mental health, because we have been so programmed in society to think that the first thing that comes to mind when you hear mental health is somebody that's full blown. And I know my daughter said don't use the word, but I'm sorry, it was just the time I grew up in, full blown retarded. Like you just whatever, you know what I'm saying? But that's not the case at all. You know what I mean? When we talk about mental health here, let me show you this. This is an article that I posted, on that page here. This was posted by Harvard, but the test was actually this whole study. It's a huge study that was done in Australia, I believe. And they're saying here, half of the world's population will experience a mental health disorder. Now, let's get into the details here. What they're saying here, they said, okay, here we go. They said the study showed that most common mental illnesses were mood disorders such as major depression or anxiety, and that the risk of certain mental disorders differ by sex. So they mentioned depression. So if you're someone that deals with depression, that's an issue. Okay, that's an issue. If you're someone that deals with anxiety, that is also an issue. So if you're somebody that, when you get online and you always seeing all this bad news over and over again, and it makes you feel very anxious, but yet you just feel like you got to keep watching because you don't want to miss out on anything or whatever, that is an issue there. Now, it doesn't mean that the solution means you got to go lay on somebody's couch and pop a bunch of pills. No, that's not what we're saying here. But it is a mental issue. And if you don't stop it, or you don't at least acknowledge that it is a problem, it's going to become a much bigger problem. And I see it just in some of the comments and some of the interactions I have. I'm like, some of these people really are not well. They're not. But they don't realize it because this thing is growing and growing and growing. They said the three most common mental health disorders among women are depression, specific phobias, a disabling anxiety that interferes with daily life, and they say post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. And they said the three most common mental health disorders among men were alcohol abuse, depression, and specific phobias. So there is what you're seeing here. Let me just give you an example here what I'm talking about. When you see like these topics popping up, it's never ending on my timeline. I don't know about yours, but the men versus the women, these black women ain't doing this and these black women ain't doing that. Or on the other side, these black men ain't doing this and the black men ain't doing that kind of stuff. Now, are they bringing up some legitimate things? Yes. But what you will also see, a lot of that is projection from the people themselves, stuff they got going on that they need help with. You understand what I'm saying? And so when these topics come up, it gives them the opportunity to exhale, if you will, all their own problems and to kind of hone it in on a particular topic. And if the topic at hand is how women ain't what and how men ain't what, you just funnel it all in there. And so if you're not really paying close attention, you just look at it one-dimensionally. But you're not really hearing or paying attention because there's numbers of these people that got more deeper issues that need to be addressed. And it's not going to be addressed by doing the whole, Brady Bunch square thing that you see on TikTok. You know how it'll be like 10 squares up there and everybody be talking over each other, that kind of thing. Do you really think any progress is made out of those conversations? No, absolutely not. But people, gives them a moment where they can just let it all out, but it ain't fixing anything. So that's what we at least try to address here. When we're talking about news topics and things like that, we also look at it from a mental health. We're not doctors, we're not licensed or anything like that, but there are some things that if you take the time and research these things on your own, you can learn a lot. Do you understand what I'm saying? And there are certain things that we do know that we've acquired over time, knowledge that we've acquired over time, where we're able to say, like, for example, at Samba Tree, we put together a list of herbs, even herbal packets that address certain parts of your brain. You understand that? Because your brain just like if you need herbs that's going to help you with your eyesight, or herbs that's going to help you with your skin or your hair or whatever, there's also herbs that are out there and natural things you could do to help with your brain health. Because there's a lot of people out here that's taking on a lot of stuff and their brain is not healthy. It's not. And like I said, again, a lot of times when people hear this, they assume that it means you got to go on somebody's couch and you got to pop a bunch of pills. That's not it at all. You know, some of it has to do with your diet. I would probably argue that a lot of it is dealing with your diet. But then other parts of it is what you intake on the things you watch or the people that you associate with. It's a whole host of things. And so this is what we, try to address here in a more healthy environment instead of just falling in line with a lot of these other folks out here. Let's see. Let me hit the chat here for a moment because there was a couple of things I saw out of the corner of my eye. I try to get this. Teen True said we're finally getting a Buc-ee's. Yeah. If y'all don't know familiar with Buc-ee's, just look them up. Yeah, that's the place that got like 500 on gas pumps. And then they said it's like a whole wonderland when you go inside there. They got all kinds of stuff in there. Yeah. So yeah, if I ever make it over there, I may check it out. But yeah, we'll take our quick trip, and I'm good with that. Let me see. Let's see. Someone else said right here. They said trying to pull it up here. Here we go. Watching you from London, England. Love and truly appreciate you and Nicole. Oh, thank you. Love you too. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And yeah, that's really something over in London, England. I'm wanting to get into this, y'all. It's just been a long week. Check out this series. I don't know how many of y'all watch this series. It's called Washington Black. You know, when I saw the first like 10 seconds of the trailer, I was like, no, I'm not dealing with no more slavery stuff. I can't do any more slavery shows. But I just so happened I came across, I said, you know what? Let me watch it because it has slight kind of, it's a little science stuff they're slipping in there, but they're taking a while to get to it. You know, so it's, it's pretty good. But I'm watching it and I was like, you know what? This ain't really that bad. Because I'm not looking at another Roots. I'm not looking at that. Never come up. I can't take it. But this one is actually pretty good so far. I think, what's his name? Something K. Brown. I can't think of the first name there, but Sterling. I think it's Sterling K. Brown. That's his name. I think he's doing a pretty good. I thought it was a pretty good job so far. So yeah, that's a show. If you want to look at something that the whole family can look at, and we got folk that look like us in it or whatever. Like I said again, it's based on that time period, but it's not. It's not really what you would think. I had to push through what I thought first until I actually sat down and began to watch it. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I see where they're going with this. Yeah, again, it's called Washington Black. You may want to check that out. Anyway, now let's go ahead and get into this. This week I did a post on, MLK. I talked about what came out of these papers, that was released here. Let me get this up on the screen here. Let's go ahead and get into this. Okay, so this is the post right here. I'll just flash to this real quick here. I'm gonna go to this one because this is going to be a great segue into this one. All right. So if you hang with me, trust me, it's going to be a great segue into this. So, we did a video earlier this week talking about how, this individual or individuals out here that were basically, one individual in particular was basically trying to take credit, if you will, of prophesying that Malcolm Jamal Warner was going to die. And then, I think it was like a year or 2 years ago, she said something like that. And then lo and behold, here we are. And then she did a video. See, I told you, you can't mess with the prophets, that kind of thing. Right. And so, we had a good conversation on that. But I said, it's so funny because people don't realize how similar they sound to some of the other groups that they claim are devil worshipers. And so I put this together here. You got a Hebrew Israelite woman. Then you got someone in the Caribbean, with their, because you have voodoo that's really big in the Caribbean area. And then you got sister, my sister, you worship in that. But anyway, she worship Ogun, over in West Africa. And she got the Hebrew Israelite woman. She's saying, Yah is going to bring down judgment. And then, and here you got the Caribbean woman, May Ogu, bring curses upon you. And then the woman from West Africa, she's saying, Ojun will bring you sickness. Ain't this something? This is what they're known for. Always bringing curses. And it seems like the curses only work on black folk. You got whole corporations that move in these countries and be ripping out the gold and the precious metal and all of that. But these gods seem like they can't stop that, but they can sure make Uncle Pete sick. They can cripple Unc. They can make Unc into a frog, into a tree. And so anyway, but the white man can come in there. Now the China man, he can come in there and do whatever he wants. Oh, well, they a little busy right now. Anyway, you got a little girl coming up here and she's saying, but can your gods create a self-sustaining community? And you see people in the background fighting and throwing bricks at one another and all that stuff. And they just are just as perplexed. Exactly. But folks just go along with it. Like, I could do this here, but you'll have people that will still be like, it's something in their minds. It's just like, anyway, yeah. And just will flip and then go on and just keep right on with it. Well, that brings us into MLK here. Now, MLK, as you know, he did a wonderful speech that I have a dream speech, wonderful speech that people all over the world were just standing up and just clapping and shouting and kicking over chairs or whatever, speaking in tongues or whatever it was that they were doing. Martin Luther King, he got up here and, he said what he said as far as, he had a dream that one day that his children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a wonderful thing to say. That, and it's a wonderful goal to have, that we have a society, that we aim for a society where people are judged not by how they look, but by their character. Now, let me give you an example, a real life example again from me, okay? Now, as I've said many times before, when it comes to LGBT folks, I do not agree with the lifestyle. That is not something I agree with, okay? I don't agree with it, okay? They may not agree with mine. That's fine. I don't care. But I don't agree with theirs, okay? But I have come across folks who are in that life. Let's say if I'm doing business or something like that, as long as they're doing business on the up and up, I personally do not care. In other words, if you're trying to cheat me, if you're trying to take money out of my pocket, you doing stuff that's like under the tables kind of nonsense, then yeah, I'm going to call you all the way out. I'm going to call you all the way out on that. Not because you LGBT, but because you're a crook. You understand what I'm saying? I'm going to call you out because of that. Has nothing to do with what you're doing in the bedroom. I don't care. But as long as you're treating me as a customer or we're doing business or whatever, and that's your life, I don't care. I'm not even looking at that. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not even looking at that. And I've come across that over many, many years of my life where you do cross paths with people who are about that life. I don't care. I don't even inquire about what people do in the bedroom if they're straight. I don't care. You understand what I'm saying? So this is kind of what King was talking about. Now, what I'm saying, I want you to listen to me carefully. That is not co-signing on their lifestyle. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't co-sign on your life. I co-sign on how you conduct business. I co-sign on how you treat other people. That's what I co-sign on. If you are treating people nicely and fairly and all of that, I'm okay with that. You ain't gonna hear nothing from me. And that's the society that King at least talked about. You understand what I'm saying? So I think most of us, we can all sign on that. But like I said, again, people who have a hard time listening and following along, what they will pull out what I just said. Oh, see, now he left the Most High. Now he talking about he with the LGBT. See, then you need to leave. That's not what I'm saying. Again, I'll say it again. I don't co-sign on that lifestyle. That's just my opinion. However, if you are an individual that, you treat people like a human being and, and you treat them with respect and all of that, I ain't got no problem with you. You know what I'm saying? Not like that. You know what I mean? Ain't like I'm asking you to watch my kids and all that. We getting into something different here. You know what I mean? But other than that, no, I ain't got no problem with you. So this is what he talked about. He wanted a society where people were judged by the content of their character. And when you look at our history, I'm talking as black folks now. I sit down when I'm talking to my mom on the phone, or when she loves telling these stories about different aunts and uncles and stuff and the different things they would do, and and how they really looked out for each other and took care of the kids and all this other stuff. I mean, great men and women. They had their issues just like anybody else did, but for the most part, there were certain things. There was a sense of right and wrong. You understand? There was a sense of, this is our community, and we're going to make sure that we may not have much, but the little we have, we're going to make sure we take good care of it. We're going to make sure that our children they're safe. We're going to make sure that our children are the best representatives of this household. And if we catch you saying anything or misrepresenting this household, not only am I going to tear your behind up, but Mrs. Clark across the street, she going to tear your behind up. Mr. Johnson down the street, he going to tear your behind up. And then by the time you get home, your daddy going to tear your behind. You understand what I'm saying? So, there was a sense of, listen, we have to maintain a very high standard, especially in this climate. And I'm talking Jim Crow. There's some of you right now, you lived through Jim Crow, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. You understand? So there was a high standard that as a people who lived, especially during that time, you had to keep that standard. Because that is what we were taught. This was ingrained in us. This was part of black culture. Okay, I'm spending my time with this because as we're getting into this, I want you to check yourself in how you react to some of the things that we're going to talk about. Okay, so what we're establishing is that there was a high standard when it came to black culture, when it came to how we operated our communities, when it came down to how we operate, just how we, handle our children and everything else. There was a high standard when it came to making sure that our businesses, we were in line, our businesses were covered, that we were taking care of our own businesses and all of that. It was a high standard for that. Okay. Now what we're going to do, I'm talking on the surface level. Now we're going to take a dive in. Okay. Now, as we dive in and go down below the surface, we're going to have to keep it 100, because there was another thing that was going on behind the scenes during that time. Okay. This is the kind of stuff we don't want to talk about, but it was true. Now, I did a series, a short series, talking about the black church. This was on our, let me see if I can pull it up here. This was, let me go to YouTube. It's long form history. Let me pull it up here. I'm just going to bring it up here again. Form history channel. Where's my channel? Long form history channel. Hold on. Because I want y'all to see it. I'm not going to play it. I'm just going to show it to you, the series here. Why can't I find my own channel? Hold on. Okay, hold on. Anyway, I'll tell you, I did a series on the black church. And in that series, I talked about, oh boy. Okay, let me do this. It's not even coming up. See, they're trying to hide me. It's a conspiracy. Anyway, let me go back. Switch account, long form history. And let me pull this up here. View your channel. And here we go. All right, so I'll pull it up right here. And this is it. Here it is. Long form history. And if you go to videos, you go right here. Right here. This is it. The Black Church, the title of this series is called The Black Church, A Factory of Broken Children, Part 1. And then The Black Church, A Factory of Broken Children, Part 2. If you haven't seen this series, you need to watch it. You need to watch it because, yes, we do go all the way in. And we go all the way, and we go through history. I go all the way back in history, and then we bring it fast forward until this, when we get into like the early 1900s on, all right? But I want to key in on a couple of things that I talked about in this series. Many of y'all know Aretha Franklin, right? Now, what is Aretha Franklin? What is she primarily known for? Her ability to sing, right? Beautiful voice, right? But Aretha Franklin had, from what we know, what came out is that she had a child from her father. And but she's known for her music, which is great. But we need to rewind that a little bit and talk about, okay, how is this man still revered as a man of God? And that happened. Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because in this culture that I just described to you, there was also a subculture that used to keep things kind of protected. Like, he's a man of God, we gotta, don't want to say anything because if we say something, it's going to just imagine all the lives that are going to be impacted if we actually hold them to any real standard. Just think about it. If we actually hold this man to a real standard, think about all the lives that's going to be impacted. Well, I can think of one right now, that child. I wonder what happened to that child. Anyway, moving right along. And then there was because there were several books that and articles that I was pulling from. There was another book that I pulled from. I forgot whose book was this. It's in there. It's in there. It was a while ago I did this, but there was a whole group of gospel singers during that time. Like you had the 5 Blind Boys of Alabama. There was some other ones too that were all in a circuit. There was a circuit of them. And they talked about how they used to, I forgot which gospel singer this was, old time. Yeah, it's in there. But anyway, one of the things they talked about was the fact that they said when we would travel and go to these different towns or whatever, we knew kind of where to go. When we knew other musicians that were in the area, so, and the musicians they're talking about or like the secular artists that was going around. Cause back then, even then gospel music and what we call secular music and all of that, it was all kind of like blended in together, right? A lot of the artists from in the soul era and all of that, they all came out of the church, And so anyway, so this individual, they were talking about how they knew, like when they went to party, this is gospel singers now. Okay, these are gospel singers. They said when we went to party, when we went to hang out with some women and all that stuff, we knew where to go. There was two options we had. They said, with the secular singers, artists or whatever, we would have our women and we just be getting down and do our stuff, right? Again, these are gospel anointed singers. But it was something, but we kept reading and they said something that was quite surprising. The person that was talking said this. They said, but all the freaks, he said, if you want to know where all the freaks were, he said, you go to where the Christians were. You go to where the gospel singers were. He said, you would see anything and everything going on where the gospel singers were. That's what they were saying. This is a real live accounts. They say, yeah, it was anything you could think of. It was going on in with the gospel singers. Anything. Those were the real freaks. And then they talked. Then it was. Then we later on in the video, I talked about another guy. It was a black guy. This is kind of like more in the. I guess that was like in the 80s or whatever. He's a producer. I think he's down in Atlanta, and I got his book as well. He was mentioning. I'm pretty sure he was talking about commission, but he didn't mention them. And the only reason I mentioned, I think he was talking about, because the way he described it, I was like, yeah, all of that sounds like commission to me. Plus, it kind of confirmed the stuff I was hearing back then, during this time when they were starting out. But anyway, he talked about the same thing. They would roll up in the studios, have women up in there and all kinds of stuff. And then it wasn't until later on, you see Fred Hammond right now. I just saw a clip of him right now. He on crutches and he up there. Everybody say bless. He still get the crowds hyped. But even not too long ago, he came out and said, yeah, that song we did, Running Back to You? Yeah, the one that had people crying. I'm running back to you. I can't sing. And people be like, oh, Lord Jesus. You remember all that? Oh, the anointing is coming down. Remember that? People be crying and all that. He said, yeah, we did that song because we were performing and doing all these songs in these concerts, and we would have women all over the place. So we decided, hey, we need to, we got to stop this. So we're going to do this song here. So, and it doesn't stop. Many of you are under this impression and thinking that these singers out here, these artists, or, better yet, these preachers and all of that, you think they just live in a cloud somewhere, like literally in a cloud somewhere, and they don't do anything. And then you got, what was his name? Kirk Franklin. There was a video, I played that too. They were talking about some of the singers on there and the stuff how they get down. This was during their height of their stuff. So what I'm saying is that on one hand, we have this culture that had these high standards when it came to, hey, don't misrepresent this community, don't misrepresent this household, don't misrepresent us or whatever. No, we're going to make sure that we keep things on point, right? And we did that. So I'm acknowledging that. But I'm also acknowledging that underneath that, there was also a subculture that condoned this double life. And the reason why, what motivated me to do that series was because of the fact that because we were talking about why is it that there are so many gay men in the black church? Why are there so many gay men? Why is that? So in order to understand that, we had to go all the way back. And I took y'all all the way back to ancient Greece and Rome. That's how far back we had to go, because you have to look at the foundation. But anyway, fast forward, we looked at this, the amount of stories that have come out over the years of young black boys that have been molested and abused and stuff, and girls too. We have talked about this for years on this platform. There should be investigations all over the place about this stuff. But the culture, well, I don't want to say anything, because see, if we say something, that's going to mess it up. It's going to mess it up for everybody. And, this is the one thing we have, and, I don't want to mess this up. We don't need to mess this up, man. Come on. Let's just keep this on the low. That's it. Meanwhile, your children are you destroying the lives of your children. So that brings me to what we're talking about now with this whole thing with MLK. Let me switch my thing back here because, again, this was stuff that was already known. It's already been out there. It's not anything new, but it's, with them releasing it, now it's even easier for people to actually look this stuff up. So that's what I did. I used ChatGPT to, pull out the data for me, and so that we can just list it all out there. Okay. And, it's funny. I was on Twitter just the last couple of days, and the amount of people that were blocking me, I was just showing them the receipts. That's it. But I wasn't. And then the first reaction of a lot of people is, "Oh, you just try to tear him down." I said, "Well, he did a good job of that himself." Because see, here's the thing. This is what I've told people. This is that, see, as a public, we love to sit back and to look at the King family and say, "Look at them niggas. They just fighting one another. They can't get along. See, they're so embarrassing." See, it's easy to sit down and to comment and to talk about that, but you don't want to get to the root of what brought that into the forefront in the first place. Nobody wants to touch that. Why? Because you're scared. And you've been trained to be scared. But we're not scared over here. We got to talk about this, because over here, we understand that in order to have a healthy community, you have to have healthy conversations, and you got to be dealing with healthy people. And so if you're not in that category, this is not for you. All right. So anyway, let me pull this up real quick, and let's just go through it real quick. OK, so this was in the in the records, right? But let me read this for you here, because I wanted to make sure I cleared the deck before we got into this, because I had people already coming up, lining up with all kind of excuses. So I wanted to make sure I was getting into all of it. I wanted to address all that very quickly. So I said, before we get started, I already know some of you are waiting to throw out there, "Well, don't you think that the government planted these allegations on him?" I said, but before you go down that road, let me remind you again that these were classified documents, meaning this information was not made available to the public. You don't create a smear campaign by classifying the smear. So yeah, this was not made public until many, many, many years ago. So if I'm planning on take any name out of here in the in the chat right now, and I was to say to whoever is in the chat right now, and I said, "Team Truth, hey, I got a whole campaign. I'm getting ready to go. I'm going to go off on you. I got all this information right now, but I'm going to sit on it. I'm going to put it under lock and key, and I'm going to make sure nobody knows about it." What kind of smear campaign is that? You understand what I'm saying? So no, this was not a smear campaign, because a campaign, it actually is referring to something that's active. You're actually pushing this information out, but they were not pushing this information out. And so anyway, so I said, second, I said there will be another group that will quickly try to brush this under, "He was just a man." And I said, full stop, in all caps. I said, real men do not engage in this type of behavior. Malcolm X was also under heavy surveillance, and to my knowledge, Malcolm was pretty much the total opposite. I never heard of him. Now, in his previous life, yeah, he was all about that life. But when he got into Islam, that came to full stop. From everything I've read and understand, he wasn't about that life. So if this was the modus operandi of the FBI, they would have drugged some stuff up and tried to throw it on him too. Because blackmail, that's what they all do. They always try to hook the FBI, CIA, and all these other groups. They always, clandestine organizations, one of the most easiest ways to kind of hold blackmail on somebody are setting up these honey traps. They always do this stuff. Sean Combs, he's part of that whole world, setting up these honey traps where you're not forcing people to engage in this crazy behavior. You're just setting it up. You're just saying, "Hey man, I'm going to have this nice party. It's going to be a lot of fun," and all this stuff. And then you just go on thinking, "Okay, I'm just going to have a few drinks. That's it," or whatever. But once you get there, you find out, "Oh yeah, now we got some girls in the back," or whatever. And then you go back there, then you start finding out some things. And then next thing you know, you doing some stuff that you should be under the prison for. but it's too late because they got cameras all over the place. That's what's a honey trap. You understand? And so Malcolm, he always rolled thick. That's one thing I could say. That man always rolled thick. So it was no room for that. So if this was the modus operandi of the FBI, they would have had something on him. But to my knowledge, there's nothing. You understand what I'm saying? So you did have men that existed and still do who don't operate in that space. Do you understand what I'm saying? They don't do this stuff. So, and this is not typical men behavior. I said, so anybody that's saying this, I said, either they never had a real man in their life or they just hate men altogether. But this is not what real men do, period. I don't care who you are. And I said, third, I said, then you got the religious people that come in and say, well, we all have sinned and fallen short. I said, King wasn't just turning the other cheek. He was clapping them from coast to coast. That's what he was doing. I said, not only that, he was being protected by the entirety of the black church at that time. Why? Because there were many black pastors who were also engaged in similar behavior. And then I made reference to Aretha Franklin's bio. And so, and then I said, at the end here, I said, even King himself had to acknowledge that he led his people into a burning building and he was part of that fire. So here's the list of what I was able to get out, but there's more. All right, but we're just going to stick to this list here. August 1963 in Atlanta, Mount Vernon, New York, Washington, D.C. This man had women all over the place. He said at least 3 women, one in Atlanta, one in Mount Vernon, and one in Washington. They said King maintains intimate relationships with at least 3 women, leaving him highly susceptible to blackmail. December the 15th, 1963. This is a wiretap in Atlanta. He had a girlfriend named Lizzie Bell. And they say King contacted a girlfriend by the name of Lizzie Bell. Bureau ordered a background check on the girl. December the 21st, 1963, Los Angeles. He was in contact with a woman by the name of Dolores Evans. King was in contact. Okay, I just said that. And she was the wife of a dentist. Let's see, December the 21st, 1963, Atlanta call. Barbara Meredith in Atlanta. King in contact with another girlfriend, Barbara Meredith, member of the Ebenezer Baptist Church. Here's another one. Boy. January the 5th, 1964, Willard Hotel, Washington, D.C. Several parishioner women, rape incident witness. Now, this is where it gets rough. But this is what this in here. When one of the women protested, the Baptist minister forcibly did you know what to her. It wasn't King, it was another minister, because it was a group of them, Abernathy, all of them were up in there. Forcibly did you know what to her. King looked on, laughed, and offered advice. Now, I'm going to sip this for a minute, and then we're going to keep on, okay? And they said it was a total of 6 women and 6 men. Excerpt, at least 12 individuals. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I get the date? January the 6th to 7th, Willard Hotel. Okay, 6 men, 6 women. Okay, excerpt, at least 12 individuals participated in a orgy. King boasted of his drunken condition. January the 8th, 1964, Delmar Lane in Northwest Atlanta. Dorothy Cotton, make sure you remember that name. FBI wiretap summary quoted in Garrow 2019. Okay, they give that. They say excerpt. King met alone with Dorothy Cotton at the Delmar Lane apartment. Whew, man, this dude. January the 12th, 1964, Atlanta wiretap. King was in contact with another girlfriend in New York by the name of Effie. He had to have a staff just to maintain this. I don't know any man that had you can manage all of this. I don't even see the possibility. You have to have other people that's in on this one. Anyway, They talk about King was in contact with another girlfriend by the name of Effie. Okay, all right, I just read that. Sorry, I just read that. And then they had Coretta Scott King in 1964. They said King's wife berated him for not spending enough time at home while he had Dorothy Cotton in the apartment. So you want to know why, in part, why those King children have been for years acting a fool. Gee, like the saying goes, the apples don't fall far from the tree. When there's instability at home, everybody's affected by it. I've been telling y'all this for a very long time. But again, like someone just said here, humans love comfortable lies. And that is so true. But we need to talk about it because it's absolutely true. And then I went even further. I talked about, it's a couple of things here. I don't know if y'all caught this or not. This was down here. Okay, that's him there. Now, Dorothy Cotton, remember Dorothy Cotton. Take a look at the title of her book. Take a look at the title of her book there. I'm going to make, so for some of y'all who are very slow, and that's okay. I'm not making fun of you. But I do know some people can be very slow. I want you to take this whole cover, the title and all that, take it all in. Take it all in, okay? Just take it all in. I'm going to take a drink here. Just take it all in. Okay? All right. So you get that. If your back's not bent, and you see where she's standing and you see who's behind her. Dwayne, you just reading stuff and you just reading into this, man. Get your tinfoil hat, Dwayne. Oh, someone said they can't see it. Y'all looking at me. Sorry about that. Here it is. Sorry about that. Here it is. Sorry about that. Take it all in. I'll give y'all another minute here. Let me see. Did I move this thing over here? Let me move this over here. Take it all in. While you're doing that, I'm pulling up this other image here. Now, this is one of the women that he had encounter with. Okay. So I'm sure y'all get it. I'm sure y'all get it at this. Like I said, again, look at where King is and look at where she is and look at the title. But like I said, for some of you, Dwayne, you're just reading too much into this. Okay. All right. Yep. I'm reading much into this. Okay. So let me switch off of that. And here's another woman that he had encountered with. She came out with a book too. Georgia Davis Powers. I shared the dream. I'm laughing from cussing. I'm sorry. That's probably the only thing I can do. Literally. These people have been telling you for years. They've been telling you for years what's up. All right. And I had two quotes here. Let me pull this up here. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. Let me pull this up here. Hey, where's my history? Hold on. I'm trying to find my history. Files, tasks, projects. Oh, here it is. Let's see. Okay, I think I know where else I can find it. Never mind. Okay, I'll just tell you. I'll just read it to you. I know where I can find it. It is right here. I'll read it for you. Okay, so there were two other people. I told you Georgia Davis Powers, right? She was a civil rights activist and the first black woman elected to the Kentucky Senate. Powers detailed her romantic relationship with King in the 1995 memoir. She described their connection as evolving from friendship to intimacy, initiated after a conversation with King's brother, A.D. King. And then the other person that did a biography on him is a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Igg. In his 2023 biography, is called King: A Life. Igg discusses King's affairs, including long-term relationships with Dorothy Cotton, a top aide at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which is SCLC, and other romantic liaisons. He references the FBI wiretaps and interviews, and including with Harry Belafonte, who noted King's lingering feelings for a former girlfriend, Moitz. That was a white woman, I think it was a Jewish woman that he had, really had some feelings for, when he was in college. And again, that's fully documented as well. So all of this stuff has been out here. Okay, this is not anything new. Now, by now, I'm sure some of you may be saying, okay, well, why are we even talking about this? That's his business or whatever. Shouldn't we be focused on the much bigger picture about King? Because he did some other things. Yeah, he sure did. And those other things, if you think, okay, he did the march, right? They marched across the bridge. They did those things. And yep, just like a lot of other people that was in those civil rights movements, they were getting beat up and all that stuff, right? So yeah, that was happening, right? But let's tell the whole truth, okay? Because what you have been told, black man and black woman, what you've been told is that if it wasn't for that, then you and I would not be quote unquote free. That is not historically true, because if you go back, what was actually happening was the country was beginning to start turning towards putting away all of these different practices. It was turning that. Now, what King and the civil rights movement did, it accelerated that. But the country was already starting to make this slow turn away from that, all of that nonsense. It was starting to do that anyway. And to add further proof to that, when you look at the civil rights bill, because this is seen as baby Jesus in the manger. I mean, that's how black people see the civil rights bill. But only thing is, when you uncover the blanket in the manger, you ain't gonna see no black baby up in there. Okay, because they don't even mention black in the civil rights bill. But when you look at the people who benefited the most from the civil rights bill, well, guess who it was? It wasn't you. It was white women. It was immigrants. They benefited. LGBT, they benefited. But black folks, when you actually look at what came out of it, there wasn't too much that came. I mean, there was some advancement, but then the other side of it, you see a whole government system that became empowered with doing things like, when it came to welfare, for example, telling black women, hey, listen, now we can help your family, but you better make sure that whoever the father is, we better not catch his behind up in the house. This is the kind of stuff that came after the civil rights movement, this movement that supposedly set the captives free. But it actually did worse for us over a long period of time. When we talk about even affirmative action, what affirmative action did, it got black faces in certain places. But we also got to measure, were those black faces, when I say qualified, I'm talking in terms of education and all experience and all of that, because what began to happen was they were just putting black faces all over the place. And some of these people, they weren't qualified for these positions. So that became an issue as well. Again, I'm not saying black people aren't qualified to do anything. Don't go that extreme, because affirmative action did help to a measure. But the solution isn't just take a bunch of people and just put them in this position here. If they're not prepared or, qualified for it, That's not how you run. Anybody will tell you that's not really how you run a business. You understand what I'm saying? So our attention then from that time period, it went from us having this self-dependency as a people. When you look back during the civil rights era, you remember when black folks were saying, hey, you know what? All right, y'all gonna do this with us with this buses. We can't sit on the front of the bus. We can't sit where we want. Okay, fine, we'll walk. But not only that, what we're going to do is we're going to partner with some of our people who got cars and we'll drive to work. We're going to develop our own Uber system. Okay, we don't need y'all. We're going to do our own thing. All right, y'all want to do that with the buses? Okay, cool. Then no buses. We'll do that. Just like that. They said, oh, okay, we got it now. So there was a mindset that black folks had during that time where it was embedded in us, this sense of self-sufficiency. You understand what I'm saying? That we can do this ourselves. We don't need y'all. And this was at the pinnacle of black history, because when you go back, and a lot of people like talking about Black Wall Street, but don't you know when you go through all through the South, we've talked about this as well, all throughout the South, Black Wall Street was not the only black town in America. People keep thinking that Black Wall Street was the only place. No, there were many towns all throughout the South and out throughout the West, towns that were built and established by black folks. Now, for some of y'all who saw the movie Sinners, they actually showed a little bit of, they gave you a little taste of it. Remember that little town? And you saw there was a lot of black folks in there. A lot of these towns were made up of black folks. When we look at South Carolina, for example, the state of South Carolina, at one point, most of the majority of the people who lived in South Carolina were what? Black folks. You think they were just sitting around and, oh, Lord Jesus, or whatever. No, they were black folks that were given some autonomy to do certain things. I'm not saying it was like one big Disneyland where they could do whatever they wanted to do, but there were things that black folks were allowed and given certain access to do. It was very, very limited. I do stress that. But when you read the whole account, there was a lot of things that black folks were doing. And again, you go Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, you name the state, there was many cases where there were towns and stuff that we had. So it was embedded in our culture, this sense of self-sufficiency where our mindset was, okay, y'all ain't gonna help us. Okay, cool. We're gonna build our own thing. But after that civil rights bill, that all disappeared. Because you know why? Because then the government started doing what? They started hiring, doing these massive hirings of black folks into government. That's when you start seeing a lot of black folks going to the USPS and black folks piling in up in the Washington, D.C. area and starting to get into all these government federal jobs and state jobs and stuff like that. So our dependency and our economic power shifted from a foundation of self-sufficiency to government dependency. That was the fruit of the civil rights era. That was the fruit. And so now we're moving in the era of AI. Guess what's happening? All of those people are losing their jobs. And so now, because the foundation has been broken, these younger people coming up, they're like, well, gee, I don't know what to do. I don't know. Nobody showed me anything. I don't know. I hope and pray they don't. There's a trend right now on TikTok. There's a trend right now. It's on TikTok, but it's on other platforms right now. I don't know if y'all seen it, but I've seen it. You have, and I'm not making this up. I'm looking at this and I just cover my face in just shame. I see these are young black women who are getting on TikTok, and yes, they're wearing, unfortunately, they're wearing the shower caps, and they're bragging about the amount of EBT money that they're getting, and they're like, "Girl, listen, you want to know where the best food to get? You go to Costco and see they're gonna take this off here. You can get $1,000 worth of food for half off, and they're just bragging about all of this money that they can get for free from the government so that they can feed their children. And they're bragging about it. And they're getting clicks and likes and shares over this stuff. And people think it's funny. I'm looking at self-destruction. So how does this all tie back to King? Again, the content of your character. Your character, when you base your character, when your character is off, everything that sprouts off of you is going to reflect some aspect of that character. It will. It will. It will. Look at Umar Johnson, for example. This is another individual. I've actually met him. Now, on the cover, he's a good guy. But the fact that that school ain't built, the fact that there's still all this mystery, it says a lot about this individual and who he really is behind the scenes. There's a lot of people like this. So when I, as a black child, I would sit back there. I remember I would go to the library and I wanted to get every record, again, we didn't have iMusic back then, y'all, okay? And I ain't shame. I used to listen to records, okay? I used to get those records of MLK and his speeches, and I would sit in my room and just listen to them for hours and hours. I would even rehearse them. So what you're listening to, this passion or whatever that you're listening to, this ain't somebody that's sitting back and saying, what am I going to talk about tonight? Ooh, let's tear this black man down. No, this is coming from somebody who staked his life on what this man preached. This is what he said: by the content of your character, you should be judged. And when he said that, even years after this man had left this earth, that still resonated with me. That is something that it echoed off of the chambers of what I was already getting at home. And it just amplified it into now, when I'm married, it's the same thing. They're getting the same thing. So I took that as, yes, that's what I want. That's exactly what I want. I want people to judge me by the content of my character. So that's a good thing. But we also got to judge the person who actually said it in the first place. Do you think that the government would put his statue right there, smack dab in the middle of Washington, D.C., if he was not an op? What do I mean by op? Well, that's the first thing, right? Led black people, got black people to convince black people to stop depending on themselves, to start depending on the government. That was the first thing. Okay? That was the first thing. And somebody who has a compromised character, they will do that and don't even think about it. I don't even know what kind of conscience you have to be able to operate like that. But let's move on, because there's more to it. There's also another thing someone brought up, and I'm glad they did. They talked about Margaret Sanger, his relationship with Margaret Sanger. Let me read something to you. Let me read this to you. Martin Luther King Jr. had a notable interaction with Margaret Sanger's legacy through his acceptance of the Planned Parenthood Federation of America Margaret Sanger Award in 1966. King was honored for his commitment to social justice and human rights, particularly for his support of family planning. We've talked about this as well when I mean about family planning. I want you to make sure you're paying very close attention to what I'm about to read to you. All right. Which aligned with Sanger's advocacy for birth control. Due to urgent civil rights commitments, King could not attend the award ceremony. So his wife, Coretta Scott King, accepted it on his behalf and delivered a speech he wrote titled Family Planning, a Special and Urgent Concern. In the speech, King expressed admiration for Sanger's work, stating, now remember, Margaret Sanger, guess who she worked with? She worked with the Ku Klux Klan. That was one of the groups that she worked with. Let's pause on that for a moment. Let's take a long pause on it. And while we're pausing here, let me see if I can find that picture. Margaret Sanger. Let me find that for you. Let's find that for you. Because some people, they just need visuals. And let me give you the visuals. Let's give you the visuals here. This is Margaret Sanger right here. So what I just read to you, King, he applauded this woman for what she was preaching regarding planning families. Yeah, you need to really think about that for a second. So yes, King was 100%. What black person you know of would say, yeah, I agree with that? Yeah, he was an op. He was an op. And I'm going to lead that up as I'm reading this to you. In his speech, King expressed admiration for Sanger's work, stating, "There is a striking kinship between our movement and Margaret Sanger's earlier efforts. She, like we, saw the horrifying conditions of ghetto life. Like we, she knew that all of society is poisoned by cancerous slums." Well, guess who was living in those cancerous slums? It was black folk. But Dwayne, he marched, for all black folks. Well, clearly not all black folks are created equal. Because if you rolling with Margaret Sanger, who basically wanted to get rid of, quote, the undesirables, end quote, you had an attitude that there was some black folks that shouldn't have been around. I know this is like a shock to many of y'all. Nobody's ever talked to you this way about this, but this is history. I encourage you, before you react and get in your emotions, look it up. It takes less than 5 minutes for you to look this up. All right. He praised Sanger's courage, noting that she launched the movement, which is obeying a higher law to preserve human life under humane conditions, and highlighted her willingness to face scorn and legal consequences to establish birth control clinics. King emphasized the importance of family planning for Black Americans, describing unwanted pregnancies as cruel evil, and arguing that access to contraception was essential to address poverty exacerbated by racial discrimination. He saw family planning as a means to stabilize Black communities by enabling families to plan for children in relation to their economic and social circumstances. Now, what's her face? Margaret Sanger, she had this whole thing. It's called the Negro Project. The Negro Project. Yes. This woman you see on the screen, she had a whole project called the Negro Project. I would highly encourage you to look it up. And when I say look it up, I would encourage you probably to look it up. Don't use don't use ChatGPT because they'll try to clean it up. They'll say, well, when we say Negro, they'll probably call it the Black Project. They'll probably clean it up. See, some things I know not to even ask. Because I'm like, no, just answer the question. Just answer the question. See, some of y'all be naming your ChatGPT like, well, Billy, he told me this, and that's my best friend, and he told me about. No, I ain't talking no Billy nut. Let me just let me get some books, okay? Let me get some of them old documentaries where people really got into the crates with this stuff, okay? I ain't trusting you on that. Let me get into this, and yeah, so. The Negro Project, where they were partnering and teaming up with other Black preachers who are also preaching this stuff. You want to know why some of these Black preachers were preaching this stuff from the pulpit, encouraging Black women to basically to end their children? Because these Black preachers couldn't even control their own peen, because they were planting children all over in their congregation, all over the countryside and everything else. So yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's get rid of the evidence. This is what these bastards were preaching. And some of y'all will sit right up here and protect this old nonsense. But see, this is what I'm trying to tell you. All of this stuff has to be exposed. If your mouth is going to be wide open, screaming and hollering about Epstein, it better be even wider about exposing these wicked demons that are out here that live these double lives. And in order for you to do that, you got to make sure your stuff is clean too. Because guess what? If it ain't clean, you going to get exposed. You understand what I'm saying? And so again, let me repeat what I said earlier. If your character ain't right, if your character ain't right, you can't get up there on an international stage and say you want people to be judged by the content of their character and your character ain't right. The entire movement that he was appointed to lead rested on both what he said and what he actually did. And today we see both. And unfortunately, what he was actually doing, we see that still happening today. And people will they just give it a whole pass. They give it a whole pass when they see people acting a fool and doing stuff like that. Oh, hey, listen, hey, we all fall short. We all, mess up and we all do things. And, it's something. Isn't it something that Atlanta, the irony of this, Atlanta is one of the top cities in the nation that's known for human trafficking. Atlanta, this is the birthplace of King. You can go to the King Center and you see, where they buried him, and you see all that. Really nice. You see Ebenezer Baptist Church and Auburn Avenue and all of that. You see all that nice. They fixed it up and all that. But you can't even walk halfway down the street, and you're literally walking right in one of the hotbeds of human trafficking. And I want to show you. Did I download that or did I save it? Let me see. I showed y'all, it was a post I did, but I'll show you this latest video that popped up. But I showed you a picture. A good percentage of the people who are involved in this human trafficking, that's taking black women, black girls, and thrusting them in a lifestyle where they are doing all kinds of things. And the culture is so numb to this nonsense. It's so numb to it. Even around the whole King place, people don't really have nothing to say about it. It's just like, oh, well, that's just life. That's how we do. It's just us being us, and, that's it. Ain't that something? There was a video here. I thought I bookmarked it, but let me see. Let me see. Hold on for a second, because you need to see this. Okay. Suspect. Maybe it was a suspect. Not sure. I'll tell you if I can't find. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. I'll just show you this one here. I'll just show you this right here. Right here. Here it is. This guy right here. Now, this guy, they arrested him for human trafficking. Black guy. And they brought him in. Arrested him. Had several women that you read the account. They talk about how he had several women that he was forcing them basically to have, interaction with men, strange men. He gets caught. And so you see him banging his head. Now, why is he banging his head? Because he's trying to build up a case. He was trying to build up a case where basically, they damaged me. They hurt me while I was in custody. When they got him on camera now showing that he was the one that actually did it. He did it to himself. See, black folks made a demand for these police cams, and boy, oh boy, the truth is all over the place. It literally is all over the place. A lot of people, they want to freak out. Oh, the cop, you saw what the cop did? For every one video that a cop did something and crossed the line, there are tens of thousands of videos where, unfortunately, people like us will upload where you're doing some most craziest of things. And and people pretty much don't have anything at all to say. Even I've done videos talking that focuses on black-owned businesses that are also suffering. Black-owned businesses that are also suffering because of this stuff. You try to bring awareness to it. Oh, yeah, it's no big deal. Good point. Someone brought up here. They said, they said, so the civil rights movement was one big psyop covert operation. I would say it was overt. Yeah, but you're right. Covert operation. And King was a Trojan horse. Exactly. He was a Trojan horse. That whole movement was one big Trojan horse. That's what it was. That's what it was. And I don't, so I'm very careful when I am judging that generation that took part in that, because black folks at that time, they were just doing what they knew. Not every black person that was alive during that time or taking part in that stuff, they weren't. I'm not saying all black people were complicit in that. That would be an untrue statement, because you had many black folks who they didn't tolerate that. They wouldn't have tolerated that nonsense that King was involved in. There were many black folks, I'm very confident of that. They wouldn't have tolerated that. But there were numbers who did tolerate it. Did y'all see, this came on my TikTok. I don't be following this stuff. When I tell you, I don't care nothing about that. Kojic, Church of God in Christ, they had their little, whatever it was, that every year they have their conference or whatever. And the amount of homosexuals walking up and down through there and all of that. I'm sitting up here like, y'all, I mean, I guess the Bible don't even, whatever standards y'all have, that don't even stand anymore. But then you'll get a few preachers up there. Yeah, I see some of y'all up here looking like sissies and all that. Meanwhile, you hemmed up and you got little boys all up and down there, man. Get out of here. You understand what I'm saying, y'all? It starts with character. The things that we're talking about that we try to address on this platform here, we talk about the new. Do you understand how many videos I could show right now of things that happened just this week? Some of the most crazy stuff that echoed the article that I started off with, talking about half the population they're saying here in America will have some type of mental illness. And I am seeing this play out literally right before my eyes. And it's like, I was telling Nicole, I feel like I'm helpless. Like there's nothing I can do. There's literally nothing I can do about it. I'm literally trying to do everything I can to help people, to bring the awareness that this is a very serious thing. But I feel like it's not, I don't know if it's going, I don't know if it's doing anything. There was a story that just came out where a man, literally his wife, he got mad at her, took her out, snatched her out. She gone. And then they say he felt bad about it. So what did he do? He got in the car, drove across straight lines to his ex-wife, then took her out. And he said, yeah, because she was the one I really should have gotten. Yeah. Then there's stories where more and more stories coming in of black folks going after. I mean, when I say going after, I mean taking them out, killing them. Black folk killing other black folks over stuff on Facebook, stuff on Twitter, stuff that they posted. They get mad and then they want to, take people out. This is happening every day. This is the fruit of what happened when we made that exchange from being a community of people that was self-reliant and we had high standards to a community where we said we just gonna hand all of this over to somebody else. This is the fruit of it. This is the fruit of it. Now, I don't expect black folks to get, to go down, march on DC and take down the statue like they took down the other statues. I don't expect that to happen, nor am I calling for that. But this should bring some pause in us really thinking just how much do we really value character. You understand what I'm saying? It's got to be something that's one of the things that have to be, if you want to establish a self-sustaining community that's going to have longevity, it has to be built on good character. It has to be. Yes, people make mistakes, but what we just talked about with King, that wasn't no mistake. He had a whole network of clapping. The clap network all over the place. And it was being protected. And who suffered? His wife and his children. That's real. So it's about time we got to stop keeping these people on these high pedestals and not being afraid. And I ain't gonna say now, do you understand? King was basically anointed by, not by God, but by the government. He was anointed by the government. Some of y'all are more afraid of the anointing of the government than the anointing of the God that you say you worship. Oh, we ain't gonna talk about King now. Then let's not talk about him. He's untouchable. You know, no, don't leave him alone. Leave him alone. Hey, we all sinned. We've all messed up, and hey, leave it alone. They ain't got nothing to do with what we're talking about today. And all. Yes, it does. It has a whole lot to talk about. It has a lot to do with what we're talking about. And we got to deal with it. We got to be honest. And until we're ready to be honest with that, stuff is going to continue to be what they are. So my encouragement to you, let's begin to be honest. Let's begin to be honest with one another, and let's begin to be truthful. And like I said, again, it starts at home, not on YouTube, not in the comment section, not with certain personalities. It begins with you. It begins with you. You got to start being truthful to yourself. And once you begin to do that, that's when you're going to start seeing things change. You're going to notice you're going to start making better decisions for yourself, you know, making better decisions on who you hang with, who you partner with, who you build with, and all of that. You're going to begin to see some radical change take place, but it has to start with you. It has to start with you. Stop thinking that somehow it's all going to be a bunch of black folks. We all going to come together. Forget that. Forget it. Just throw that out the window. I love black folks. I love black folks, but I ain't going to I'm not going to let niggas hold me back. That ain't that is not happening. That is not happening. That is not happening. It's not. You know, Prince said, I will die for you. I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not doing that. Nope. I ain't doing that. I'll tell folk, hey, this is what you can do. Okay, but you still want to go to, okay, fine. Yeah, I'm going, go on, learn the hard way. But I'm going to, you know, whoever comes my way, I'm going to do what I can to help, give you stuff or whatever. And then, you know, that's it. I'll help. You know, I'm always about that. But you want to bring in, you know, all that craziness and all that, and you trying to mess up my peace and all that stuff. No, you hit the road, Jack. Hit the road. Hit it. Hit the road. Hit it. All right, that's all we have. Thank you so much for tuning into this broadcast. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Remember, over at sombertree.com, 20% off. We wrapping it up. We winding this up, y'all. Okay. Focus on your health. Starting with your health. Okay, that's a good place to start. sombertree.com. Start with that over there. And that's it. If you always, anytime you got any questions for me, put them in the chat, put them in the comment section, and I'll do my best to get to you. Okay. Thanks again. You guys take care, and I'll see you again soon.